The followers have been known for their attack, and most ever know went up. So, you elect me, Mayor Carlton Wolfenson, leader of the Steam Workers Union 501. How I've encountered the Nazi High Command, all of the midgets, 1,001 of them, try to disguise themselves as the Hell's Angels. Try to stop them from a group of nuns, getting to a group of nuns with nothing but oversized spork. Ha! Well played, sir. Or as you can see, this is what back in the early days, back when I was just a mere worker, that I myself was also a bit of a traveler. And so, during my wanderings in the Mojave Desert, I came across an interesting sight in the desert. A monastery. Out in the middle of fucking nowhere, of all places. And it turns out that this monastery had a bunch of nuns who, shall I say, were a bit nymphomaniac. And so, being lost in the desert with nothing but on me, but rather than a spork, it's kind of hard to hunt desert wildlife with a spork, especially if one looks like a shovel. Well, sure, I can dig, no problem, but how am I supposed to hunt animals with this huge spork? And so, I came to the monastery. As I knocked on the door, one of the nuns, with nothing but an abbot and stockings and the little wooden crosses, answered the door. And I actually went, please, I need food, I need water, I need shelter for about a week. And she said, oh, fine, very fine, sir. We'll shelter you, feed you, clothe you. But you need a little bit of something for us. About 3 restless nights later, I hear a knock at the door. So I took my hat, covered myself, answered the door. I see this interesting German, knee-high, in an SS Luftwaffe uniform. Like, excuse me, sir, but you're on our property. Quite of a high-pitched voice, too. But I asked him, your property? Seems like the church's property. Oh, no, sir. This is the property for the 7th Reich. Apparently, it had 2 more since had about 3 or 4 more since the 3rd one. And I look up, and there's a lot more of these little guys. And it's like, one thing I found interesting about every 50 guys looked exact the same. With every 50, and whenever it gets to 51, it's a whole different guy. And so, I say to him, "Begone, sir!" And just slam the door shut. The fifth night, it came again. But a rather comical way, I should say. Have you ever seen when children want to go into a risque forum that they'll try to stand on top of each other's shoulders? It was the exact same thing. I open it up. I see about 501. I should say, I would say 499, but it's been a while since those days. That I see these oddly balancing people swaying at the waist like they were drunk, but yet they're not. And I actually don't. What do you fellas need good says? And once again, still a high pitched voice, but trying to disguise the fact that they're not.
Please, good sir, you're on our property.
And I get to thinking, I grabs my spork, I just bop one on the head. And like dominoes, as the first one fell, the second two fell, the third three fell, and pretty much the entire column of these SS midgets just tumbling all over each other in their badly disguised. And I say it again, "Begone! This isn't your property!" And then their leader got back up, removed this face mask. It turned out that the 1001 was a midget clone of Hitler. Little pencil mustache and everything. Knee high. Yelling at me in German. And I sit there and think, what is he saying? Surely he is on American soil. How can this little Hitler believe that this monastery is his? But I close the door, I turns around, and see the nuns once again, and well, they say God works in mysterious ways. And sometimes the mystery is all the sweeter. And so, on the sixth day I was there, the nuns were gathered around me, asking me, what shall I do to defend their home again? And so, I get inspiration as I was walking around the outside. I see a coyote in the distance chasing a rather tall roadrunner. Strange sight to be assured. But still, this coyote running along, and further ahead, I see this trap. Just a rather classic trap. Just a rather classic trap of the painted hole in the wall. And so, I see this roadrunner run into the door. And gone. Vanished. Without a trace. And see the coyote. Wham! Right into the wall. And then hit me. That I should disguise the monastery as a mountain. But the problem is, I am mere one man with a spark. And the ladies don't have the right protection. Ha ha! So I wonder, what out here can help me dig? And then it struck me, once again, that I should get help from the wildlife. I searched, and I searched, and I found 3 willing volunteers, 500 colonies of ants, 22 armadillos, and a jackrabbit. An odd collection to be sure. But I am half animal. And the animal was a little bit unleashed, if you know what I mean. And so, with the help of my animal friends, we start building around the monastery. Using my spark as a shovel, just getting in there, shoveling. Then me, the armadillos, shoveling around. The ants taking little bits of the dirt and start placing them slightly. And we dug around, not only around the monastery, but we even raided the local mountains for boulders and rocks. Try to make as much as a mountain in the middle of nowhere as possible. But what if the jackrabbit? It was revealed to me that the jackrabbit was a cousin of a Bugs Bunny, I believe? Brigadier Rabbit? I keep forgetting which. He has a sly one. So too were the SS Midget Brigade. And so, while we were making a monastery into a mountain, they were coming up with a plan of their own. As it seems that in a local town about 300 miles away was being terrorized by the Hell's Angels. Literally, a demon-infested town. All dressed up as the bikers. And so while the Nazis were working up a plan to infiltrate as the Hell's Angels, me and animal friends or make it a splendid mountain. A mountain to be worshipped. The mountain of the ages! It was so cleverly disguised that later on, from what I've heard, that the what were the shapeshifters? The shapeshifters of the dragon calls the monastery mountain Red Tower. For a lot of the soil that we dug up and a lot of the boulders were red. Some, like my drink here. And so, upon completion of the mountain, we hear this thunderous noise in the distance. And then I see Midget Hitler riding on a hog. More like this. 8 bars, like the 8 bars, the 60 bars in the back. Just rambling, rolling on. And so I stood there, spark in hand. Just laying on the ground. The midget Hitler comes up with me, starts yelling random things in German. I took my sport and just went smack him across the face. And I just said, "Shut up! I'm trying to sleep here." And resumed and began to sleep. And it just slept there for about several hours, during which time I actually had their English translator walk up to me and start asking me questions. I find it odd that about ninth, like 6th or 7th word was actual English. But I quite simply told him, "What monastery? You guys are drunk. It's a mountain." It's like what you saw earlier days. It's my hallucination. We're being out in the desert for days. They muttered amongst themselves, while I once again started napping. And then asked me again, "How do you explain the special nuns?" And I say unto them, "Have you ever heard of the Lot's wife phenomenon? These strange pillars of rock, of salt, in Jerusalem? What you were seeing was a cactus. Lots of cacti. I'm still plucking thorns out of my sides." And I proceeded to pluck another one and throw it into the eye of Midget Hitler. He was quite sore about that. They conversed amongst themselves again as I slept again. And then they left. On top of their little, I could barely reach the handlebars, arms. I think someone was grabbing them like this. Even the handlebars were like that. With their tiny hands just grabbing them like this, going. Yeah. Once they were all gone, I dug my way back into the monastery and told the ladies there that they were safe. And they thanked me once again. Ha ha! And so, that is how I stopped 1001 of the Nazi High Command Munchausen from attaining a monastery of nuns with nothing but a book. And now, if I remember his name right, for whoever is after me, how did you raise the entire London National Cemetery with nothing but a wooden nickel and the incompetent help of your father's brothers, cousins, twice removed, former roommates, and thus causing the London's vampires to go to war with the Covenant of Antarctica? I hear a word from the Steam Union that they were still pissed off about that adventure. To the Baron and Sir Nathan Songbird. Good night to you, sir.